Mr. President, honorable ministers, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I stand on the previous well-articulated protocols. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you to the 19th Nigeria Economic Summit. It is also with great pride that I announce that this is the 20th year of the creation of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. We believe this to be a tremendous achievement for this institution, considering the many heads of states, leaders, and individuals we have worked with over the years, and the many policies and decisions that have been taken as a result of our collaborative intervention with government. Another special aspect of this summit is our focus. For the first time in our history, we will focus the summit on a particular sector of the economy, specifically agriculture. Hence, the theme for the 19th Nigeria Economic Summit is Growing Agriculture as a Business to Diversify Nigeria's Economy. Last year, our theme at the 18th Summit held in October was titled Deregulation, Cost of Governance, and Nigeria's Economic Prospects. At the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, we have been consistent in our clamor for a deregulated, free market, and private sector-driven economy. Even the best of governments cannot carry the load alone. The one fundamental question we raised about deregulation was, how can we stop government from doing the things the private sector is willing to do, and so free up government's resources for the things the private sector cannot be motivated to do? We must be guided by the answers to this question. However, as we deregulate, so must we learn to regulate by way of upgrading our regulatory institutions that have responsibility for the necessary oversight functions. We are going to need to improve our skills, our capabilities, and competencies on regulatory issues. We will have to perfect our art of institutional regulation to ensure fairness, equity, and value for money for all consumers. The summit last year also raised issues about the cost of governance, with 70% of our income funding governance in its entire ramification. This is just too high a price to pay. Attempts are being made to reduce this, but to take a collective decision of the current beneficiaries to see reason and show leadership by displaying an equal, if not a higher level of sacrifice than what Nigerians are being asked to make today. If truth be told, the size of our government is larger than the economy it manages. So from the last summit, participants wanted to see a strong and fast strategy for reducing the cost of governance. They wanted to see the full deregulation of the downstream petroleum sector. They wanted to see the PIB put to bed. They wanted to see the completion of the deregulation of the power sector. They sought for the conclusion of the privatization of the railways and wanted to see our initiated road construction projects completed and stronger initiatives on infrastructure to be put in place. All these at a level that will visibly impact the nation's economy. We know that there are a few items that can be ticked on that list, but we have a lot more as work in progress. So that was about NES 18 and last year. Mr. President, honorable ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, notwithstanding agriculture being the focus of this year's summit, it would be remiss on our part if we made no comments on other aspects of the economic environment. We must acknowledge the effort which has resulted in the continuous empirical growth in the Nigerian economy. With growth this year projected to exceed 7%, the economy is doubtless recovering from the slowdown experienced last year. With growth being accompanied by a slower increase in prices, a surplus on our trading account, and rising foreign direct investment in our country, it is tempting to conclude that all is well with our national economy. We note also the improvement in our ranking in the World Economic Forum's annual Global Competitiveness Survey, moving up from 127 to the 115th position. However, our nation, despite the improved ranking, remains in the bottom quartile of the 147 nations surveyed. It has become painfully clear in recent times that the global and local oil industries are witnessing significant change. The challenge of America's ongoing transformation from an oil importer to a net exporter is not to be dismissed lightly. Neither should we ignore the importance of the technology of fracking and shale oil on our economy. We need to improve production capacity and eliminate vandalization and oil theft. I take this opportunity to draw attention and to urge our compatriots in the National Assembly to expedite work towards the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act. Power, particularly, cannot be ignored. Steps to privatize power and take the process to its logical conclusion have to be implemented with vigor and rigor and played strictly by the rules. While we applaud, Mr. President, for the decisive action being taken to actualize the reforms on power, we must caution government on its ability to manage the transmission of power between the now privatized generating companies and the distribution companies on the other hand. Based on today's realities, transmission is seen to be the weakest link. Significant attention needs to be paid to the nation's current transmission capabilities. So, this summit is focusing on agribusiness as the logical starting point for the diversification of our economy, but success will depend on three major priorities. Firstly, agriculture itself needs attractive economic incentives and funding, as well as a supportive operating environment based on improvement in infrastructure, review of reforms such as land ownership, and improving market access. Dare I say that if the government can take responsibility for clearing land and charge that expense into the cost of land acquisition, many more people would be encouraged to engage in commercial farming. This is a model that developers have applied to housing, where roads, drainage, and power are put in place and people are invited to acquire these infrastructure-ready plots to build their homes. Why not a similar model for agriculture? Secondly, investment in infrastructure is critical, particularly roads, rail, ports, storage, and power, or to support market access and the agricultural value chain. And lastly, local and export markets also need attractive investment climate to stimulate demand and develop downstream agricultural supply capacity. This summit will focus on the policy actions needed to foster all these three priorities and even more. I want to share with you a concept that I believe in called value propositions. Any country with a clear economic focus needs a global value proposition. Its value proposition drives its national focus. Its value proposition represents the economic crusade of that country. It's what that country has to offer to the rest of the world. What then is Nigeria's value proposition to the global community? What is the value proposition around which we should focus our energy? What is the value proposition that would aid us to define an appropriate economic paradigm which is uniquely ours? It is the relevance of our value proposition to the rest of the world that can help us to sustain an appropriate economic situation for our country. I believe that through the agricultural transformation agenda, Nigeria might have just rediscovered itself and found its value proposition. Nigeria's agriculture is undergoing massive restructuring and transformation with focus on growing agriculture as a business. And to use the minister's term, the goal is to turn Nigeria into a global agricultural powerhouse. With unemployment rates as high as 30% in 2011 and a high food import bill of approximately $8 billion in 2012, our country has the opportunity to reduce unemployment and conserve valuable foreign exchange through investments in the agricultural sector. This summit presents a unique opportunity for domestic and global leaders to discuss ongoing reforms in Nigeria's agricultural sector, focusing on improvements required in infrastructure, the creation of more agro-industrial zones, structuring innovation, financing schemes, and providing an enabling policy environment that is critical for the full exploitation of the agricultural value chain and its attendant benefits. Agriculture therefore holds the key to the economic transformation and diversification of the Nigerian economy. So it is understandable why agriculture must become our national value proposition. I want to talk a bit about education. It should be emphasized that job creation is critical for Nigeria's progress. In fact, it is a major scorecard of Mr. President. But employment in agribusiness and all industrial and service industries depends heavily on education and employable skills. While improvements in the business and economic environment will go a long way towards reducing the level of joblessness, we at the Nigeria Economic Summit Group believe it is time to undertake a fundamental review of our education sector. Our institutions at all levels are producing graduates not fit for purpose. In other words, sir, our children are leaving school without the skills required to sustain them or contribute to the growth and development of the national economy. The challenge of inadequate human capital is fast becoming the biggest challenge, which we will all have to overcome. We must face our education system with the passion and vigor we're about to put into agriculture. As I begin to wrap up, I believe we must also pay attention to the impact of the ongoing politics and ensure that the approaching general elections do not destabilize the economy. It would be unfortunate, to say the least, if in the run-up to the election, campaign utterances, policy positions, alliances, and expenditure create risks which are inimical to our economic progress. We all have to be careful. In closing, Mr. President, let me be the first to congratulate you for rediscovering Nigeria's value proposition. It's a proposition sitting squarely on the platform of our natural competitive advantage. Oil was never to be our value proposition to the world. By this aggressive agricultural transformation agenda, you have provided this country with the one big national project that everybody can lock into. This calls for a total alignment of our knowledge, our skills, our attitude, our behavior, in other words, our competencies, with the ability to deliver on our new global promise. We have spent the past few months working with the Minister of Agriculture and the National Planning Minister to make this summit happen. I believe we are witnessing the beginning of a new phase in the life of our nation. You, sir, have created a basis for the economic unification of our country. If we can all only just focus, and remain committed to this cause. Mr. President, honorable ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the board of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, its members, the National Planning Commission, and the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, I truly and heartily welcome you to the 19th Nigeria Economic Summit. Thank you.